So as for al-ghayb, الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, to believe in the unseen, in this regard, is to believe in Allah, to believe in His angels, to believe in His books, to believe in the messengers, to believe in the last day, paradise, hellfire, and to believe in the divine decree, as the ulama mentioned. Here, the idea why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says it here, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, that the description of those who are without a doubt from the muttaqeen, from those who are God conscious, is that they believe in the ghaib, they believe in the unseen, is that a quality of the believer is they don't need to see it to believe it. They don't need to see it to believe it. You know, when someone says, I have to see it to believe it, they have ilmul yaqeen before aynul yaqeen, the knowledge of certainty before the sight of certainty. Okay? Ilmul yaqeen before aynul yaqeen. The knowledge of certainty, or certain knowledge, before the confirmation of sight. And so the believer does not need to see it to believe it. The hypocrites are very superficial people. If you realize, they're very surface level. They can't see past immediate gains. They can't see past immediate loss. They can't see past worldly allure of position and power and prosperity, right? Very surface level. And that's why they only construct the surface and they leave the inside empty. Okay? The believer, يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ, doesn't have to see it to believe it. But on top of that, okay, very important, does not need to see it to believe it, nor do they need to see it to work for it. Nor do they need to see it to work for it. They don't need to see it to believe it, nor do they need to see it to work for it. And this construction is a strong one. Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, أَمَّا الْغَيْبِ فَمَا غَابَ عَنِ الْعِبَادِ مِنْ أَمْرِ الْجَنَّةِ وَأَمْرِ النَّارِ وَمَا ذُكِرَ فِي الْقُرْآنِ, that the unseen here, Allah did not specify what elements of the unseen He's talking about. Anything that you can't see, that is spoken to us from the Quran and the Sunnah, whether it's Allah Himself, or Jannah and Nar, paradise and hellfire, or, Dajjal, Ya'juj and Dajjal is, of course, and Ya'juj and Ma'juj, these are things that come later on, but anything that you can't see, but that you believe in because you have come to a place through your intellect, through your experience, through your spirituality, that this is the book of Allah, and that you still are willing to work towards. Okay, it's included in this idea of ghaib, and this idea of the unseen. And he said, Inna amra Muhammadin sallallahu alayhi wa sallam كان بينا لمن رآه والذي لا إله غيره آمن أحد قط أو ما آمن أحد قط إيمانا أفضل من إيمان بغيب. He said that the matter of the Prophet ﷺ was clear to those who saw him. Like, you couldn't meet the Prophet ﷺ and reasonably hear him talk about this without coming away with the full conviction that he was who he was. His claim was clear, right, when you actually met him. And he said, but I swear by Allah, no person will ever acquire a better level of faith than believing in the unseen. And so that idea here, that, well, I never saw the Prophet ﷺ, right? Like, I hear about how amazing he is. I know the Quran is amazing. I have conviction in the Quran. I can reasonably and rationally go through the proofs of prophethood, right? But seeing him, it's like the unseen to us, isn't it? The fact I never saw him, right, never got to be with him, also makes the Prophet ﷺ, in a way, part of the ghaib. So to the believers at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the prophets that came before were part of the ghaib. They're also part of the unseen, right? For us, in this sense, I never saw the Prophet ﷺ, so there's a greater exerting that has to come from me in order to not just believe in him, ﷺ, but to work in accordance with his sunnah. Like, I have to read about his sunnah. They got to see it, right? So obviously their performance level was matching that. Okay? Now, the death of the Prophet ﷺ is the greatest tragedy that ever struck this ummah. was the death of the Prophet ﷺ, right? But can we say it was a greater tragedy for those who lived with him? In a way, yeah. I mean, it hurt them a lot more